modal half steps, which would be a negative third scale degree, but we don't have negative scale degrees going backwards. All right, let's do the next one. Wait, now I just put a dot there. Let's undo this. Okay, go down. So now we have a P, a 5-note away, which we call a perfect fourth. So a 5-note away perfect fourth, if I'm on that, let's take this C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I get up to here. So we land on a continent, of course, if we're in the Ionian mode. What's the inverse? We usually call that a 12 minus 5, which would be a 7-note away, and we have to know that that's a perfect fifth. The inverse of a perfect is a perfect. So the perfects are inverses. Why did that happen? Because the perfect seventh was made perfect instead of major. It should have been called major 7, but they thought it was so cool, and it was such a solid interval that they want to call it perfect, and that means that you have to make the inverse perfect. So obviously that's why the perfects are inverses of each other, because if you make one perfect, you'd have to make the other one perfect, you would think. So then, all right. So, but obviously, in reality, we would be going backwards. Now, let's say this one is in the Ionian, so I would call that a modal range of a IY modal range, right? I to the Y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes up, or 1, 2, 3 modal half steps, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4 scale degrees. So an IY modal range is a 1-4 modal range, which is a 5-note away from the Ionian node third modal half step, which would be the fourth scale degree. So what would be the inverse? Well, you'd have a YI modal range. So let's do that. So we're going to go to a Y. Wait, now that's the wrong tool. A YI modal range. So here's the Y. Here we go. Boom. So a YI modal range, a 4-1 modal range, would be a 7-note away from the Lydian mode, and it would be 4 modal half steps if I was to continue going forward. If I was to go backwards, what would it be? It would be, so this would be a 7-note away from the Lydian mode, 4th modal half step, which would be the 5th scale degree. See how that P is not really telling me anything? The 7's telling me something, and then I would rather know the node that I'm measuring from. Otherwise, I can drop it entirely. I can just say it's a 7-note away, or 7-note away 4th modal half step, or 5th scale degree, right? I don't need, okay. So that means, so that if I was to go backwards, it would be 7 minus 4, which would be negative 3, right? So I can go back 1, 2, 3 modal half steps, which you would think would be the negative 4th scale degree, but we don't have negative 4 scale degrees. That's why I would start to think about this 7-note away perfect fifth as being bidirectional, right? It could either go forward. I'm sorry, we're on this one, a 5-note away perfect fourth, right? You could think of them as going forwards or backwards is the point. I think I kind of messed that up. I'll try to do better next time. Hold on a second. We're going to go, this is going to be a 6-note away. This is the crazy one. The 6-note away diminished fifth, because that's the one right in the middle. It's got that crazy tone to it, right? So let me do everything with this cursor instead of trying to underline it. All right, a 6-note away diminished fifth. So 6 notes away isn't in the key of C. If I go 6 notes, I land in the ocean, right? Almost all the time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the Lydian, from the Ionian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the ocean. From the Phrygian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I land in the ocean. When don't I land in the ocean? Well, the Lydian, but we call that a fourth. So we're going to go to the Locrian, the B, because that's a fifth. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't land in the ocean. So let's measure from there. We're going to say, all right, we're going from here and we're going to here. Okay, so that's going to be a 6-note away. What's the inverse? Well, 12 minus 6 is still 6. So you'd still call the inverse a diminished fifth. So that's the weird thing about that tone. It's right in the middle, like right on the clock face, right on the bottom, right? And so if I was to think about that, then I want to think about it kind of like in the Locrian, because that's the only one where you really don't land in the ocean. And that would be a 6-note away, which would be an NY. It would be an NY modal range, which would be a 7-4 modal range, which would be a 6-note away from the Locrian node 4th modal half step, which would be the 5th scale degree. And the inverse then would be a YN, So it'd be something like right here. And that, so to go the other way, it would be a 6-note away Y third modal half step or fourth scale degree. Now remember, the fourths and the fifths get mixed up because this is 6 notes away that could end up on the fourth or the fifth. It's a weird one, but the point is I could go forward this many steps. Like if you're on the Lydian, it happens to be the fourth modal half step. It happens to be the fourth scale degree, which would be the third modal half step. We'll talk more about that later. There's a weird interval. But I could also go backwards, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that means, how can I see that? Well, it would be this 3 would be 7 minus 3, 7, 6, 5, 4. And this 6 would be 12 minus 6 or -6, right? Okay, let's undo this, see if I can undo all of this without doing anything too crazy. Boom, perfect. All right, let's do the next one. And so that was the crazy one. So now we're on a 7-note away perfect fifth. This is the really solid one. So if we go 7 notes away, we can go from our standard Ionian. 7 notes away, we'll land on a continent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's say we're going from, not that one, this one. We're going from here to here. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going from here to undo to here. Okay, so that's fine. What's going to be then the inverse of a 7-note away perfect fifth? It's going to be 12 minus 7, which is a 5-note away perfect fourth. So again, we're thinking that we're going 5 notes up instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes back. So that means you can think of a perfect fourth as either going 5 notes up or 7 notes back. That's how I would think about it. Now, but if we had a better system, and if I go 7 notes up from the Ionian, it would be an IX modal range, which would be a 1-5 modal range, which would be a 7-note away from the Ionian node, fourth modal half step, which would be the fifth scale degree. The inverse would be an XI modal range. An XI modal range is going to be out here. It's going to be an XI modal range right there. So that, and the XI means that I could either go clockwise or counterclockwise, right? If I go clockwise, I would be going forward another 5-note away from the Mixolydian node, which would be a third modal half step or a fourth scale degree, would be going forward. If I was going backwards, I can name it as though I'm going backwards to tell you the direction, which would be 12 minus 5 or a -7 from the Mixolydian node. 7 minus 3 would be a -4 modal half step, which you would think would be a -5th scale degree, but we don't have negative scale degrees. That's why you have to think about like this term as though it can kind of go forward or backwards, so you can get directionality into the process so that you can actually look at it directionally. So then let's do the next one. The next one is going to be an 8-note away minor 6. All right, if we go 8 notes away, let's pull this out again. We can't go from the C, because if I go 8 up, do I have enough room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We land in the ocean. But it's a minor mode, so if I go 8 up, let's say from the Aeolian, let's do this Aeolian right there, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We land on a continent. So we can go 8 up from an Aeolian, or let's actually do one, because that's going to be way on the, we'll keep that. 8 up from the Aeolian. Okay, so what's the inverse? I can go 12 minus 8, which would be 4, which would be a major third. So the inverse of a minor is a major. Now again, that usually means that I'm going to go forward 4 around the circle, but I can see if I'm going from here back to here, I'm actually going -8 distance-wise, which is why I would start to remember that a major third could be a 4-note away forward, but it can also be a negative. So I would think by default, you're going to say a major third means 4 notes away, but it could also be negative, and that's when I would define, look, it's a 1, 2, 3, it's a -8-note away major third, or if it's an octave higher, I would say it's 4 plus an octave, 4 plus 12 note away major third. That'll help you to get better at your directions, right? Otherwise, people get lost. People get lost, all right? I get lost easy. I would appreciate a little bit of more defined directions might help me a little bit, okay? That's all I'm saying. If I get lost, it's your direction's fault. That's what I'm saying. All right, so it's an AY modal range, a 6/4 modal range, which would be an 8 note away from the Aeolian node, 5th modal half step, which would be the 6th scale degree. I lost my mouse again. Where did my mouse go? There it is. The 6th scale degree. Boom, right there. So if I went the other way, then it would be a YA modal range. YA modal range. So where's the YA modal range? Which would be right there, which would be a 4 note away from the Lydian mode, 2nd modal half step or 3rd scale degree.